All right. Well, I'm super excited to get started on my first ever video for our Unlearn with Us series. My name is Rebecca Chambers, and I'm an educator, and I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Over the last, I'd say, 17 years, I've been teaching in the public education system and have really been aspiring to change the way that we do things. I didn't really realize that I was doing that in the beginning of my career, but now sort of looking back at my journey and making my way through 17 years of education, I really was actually trying to do it without even knowing it. Over that time, I have done a lot of research. I've done a lot of experimenting. So standing here beside me or sitting here beside me is a former student of mine, Cam Lamoureux. And we're going to talk about sort of his experience and in the classroom. But I've also been trying to push boundaries, and we'll talk about some more exciting stuff related to that later on. I really wanted to start out by having Cam on the podcast. What is this? A video cast? A video series? I wanted him to be my first guest because, like I said, I think he represents a lot of the students that I've had the opportunity to work with over the past 17 years. But this particular cohort that he was in really became my guinea pigs and learned alongside with me. And Cameron wrote a blog when he was in grade 11, and it was tough and it was scary, and he really inspired me to start writing my blog, which was, well, it still exists, Unlearn with Us. And it was a place for me to have a voice and to really get started on this journey. So thank you, Cam, for joining me on this first video series or video. I don't know, I gotta start figuring out what to call it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to catch up, get back together with you, and talk about what's been going on.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. So you are just finished your second year of university, correct?
Going into third year now. It's passing by like super fast. You never would have thought.
Yeah, so tell us about you. Tell us about where you're at.
Okay. Yeah, so I am obviously, like you said, your former student. You inspired a lot of my learning journey. I think I'm definitely still classifying myself as a learner, as a student. I'm always going out of my way to learn something new and be curious about the world, even when I think that I've got it all figured out, which happens every once in a while, but you get out of that trap pretty soon. And yeah, I'm still learning. I am in English and philosophy at the University of Ottawa. Like you said, going into my third year now. And yeah, I'm not really sure what I'd like to do or where I'm taking that, but really just enjoying where I'm at right now and trying to stay grounded amid everything happening with COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, and trying to make myself in the best position as possible to help other people and really stay afloat, I guess, amid everything happening.
Yeah, I know you do a lot of, right before we were on here, you were telling me about the reading that you're doing and meditation. I'd love for my viewers to hear more about that. What do you do?
Yeah, so I got really involved in meditation way back in the day in your class. I think we talked about it lots. I was really interested in the power of meditation, sitting down and being involved in the present moment, and how that could change every moment of your life, regardless of whether you know it consciously or not. And more recently, I guess I've been involved in studying yoga, just the general practice of Ashtanga yoga and the philosophy behind it, why it exists, and what you're supposed to get out of it. It's kind of different than going to a yoga class. I haven't had the benefit of like studying under a master or as a teacher really, because I've just been in my house by myself most of the time. And I got a couple books and really just been reading about that and trying to get myself more in tune with the present. And it's been really fun. You really notice how full your awareness is all the time, that kind of, it just slips away when you're on autopilot living your life. You get caught up thinking your own thoughts, and it distracts you from everything around you, whether it's our face-to-face conversation right now, or people who are watching this video might not even be watching because they're caught up in their own thoughts about whatever it is, what they're going to eat later, what they're about to go open next, what they're going to do next week, or what they have done weeks past. It's always there. And if you can slow down and really control it to a certain extent, it's never really gone. But if you can be aware of it, then you've come a long way, in my opinion. So
super cool. And I think like I have my questions, you know, moving forward, I'm going to invite lots of different people on to talk about sort of education and where it's going and where it needs to be. And but I think it's really interesting. You know, the next question is, you know, what's your, well, you've kind of talked about your educational background, but what is your connection to education? And your, it was so fascinating to watch you go through 2 years reading. You're an avid reader. And so, yeah, so maybe tell us a little bit about your relationship with school.
Okay. Yeah. I've, so I was your student in grade, well, I guess I started in grade 11 and 12 was my only 2 years with you in high school at John McCrae. And it was really good. I mean, before that time, I had felt like a good student, like I kind of knew some things about about stuff. There was always something that, like, I did great in school. I did okay enough to pass and feel that I was doing good. And it was only after I stopped, and especially in your class, because you really pushed us to find out what we were interested in. And that question was huge. Like, what do you really want to learn? Like, if you had the choice. Most people are never asked that question, and they don't bother asking it themselves. And when that's the case, everybody else determines what you learn for you, and you're just stuck. You don't have any opportunity to learn for yourself. So you showed me how I could learn for myself. And in grade 11, I really started reading on my own. And books are like teachers that are just not present. They're just absent teachers. Every book is an opportunity to learn something. And whether that's like a poem, a play, or a philosophy treatise, a scientific treatise, anything, you can read whatever book and take something and gain some understanding that you did not have previously, which is fascinating. It's incredible that words on a page can do this. And when I kind of like got in tune with that and really started reading more, I didn't want to stop ever. It was just so eye-opening to see, and humbling as well. I think when you really realize how much there is to learn, you realize that you will never know it all. There's nothing that you can ever do to know everything there is. And that's so huge. That's so critical to any person who wants to learn something and be a thinker and be a leader. You need to know how humble it is to learn. So that was huge for me. I guess starting in grade 11 and 12, I really got interested in philosophy and English. Speaking with you definitely highlighted my interest in philosophy. I wasn't able to pursue it originally in school because my parents didn't want me to. But after some talks and I think there's an article by Mark Cuban who wrote that philosophers will be the most paid people in the next generation going forward, because we will need to think about problems that no one's ever thought about before. And philosophers are the ones who are always thinking about stuff, and they want to know the answers. Well, no, they just want more questions, really. There isn't always going to be a concrete answer. So being able to develop questions and think through them is really what I love. And it's so much fun to be able to do that. And your class, growing with you in grade 11 and 12, taught me to do that for myself. So that was huge. Definitely a huge part of my education background. Probably created the foundation for all learning that I will have in the future. And I'm super grateful for it.
Yes. And I always say this, that Cam got into these books and would come running in every day to tell me something that he learned. And half the time I had no idea what he was talking about. I remember in grade 12 when you tried to explain, when you guys did, it was a form of Genius Week, or remember it was like, just learn whatever you want and then you have to find a way to like share the information. and you were
Mhm.
talking about, was it artificial intelligence that you were talking
Yeah, I
about?
think it was AI, but more like the yeah, like AGI, which is what it's now classified as, like artificial general intelligence.
Okay.
And I was talking about quantum theory, and it kind of is all over the place.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah. Yeah.
it was
No,
fun.
but I mean, that's not on you. Like, I just remember that connection between the, like, and you often see that it's kind of like a Da Vinci thing, right? Like an an overlap or an intersect with physics and philosophy and art.
Yeah.
And I think you're the next Da Vinci there.
Thank
I don't
you.
know about the art
That's
part.
definitely yeah, I mean, I started some drawing at the beginning of quarantine, and
Yeah.
I slowly waned. I was not up to the challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely got some artists in my family, so I'll have to keep practicing.
Yeah. That's cool. So yeah, so then like the next thing that I want to hear from people is, what do you think about our current system? I mean, for you, I'm probably going to be interviewing, people who haven't been in it. Like I haven't, I mean, I've been in it as a
Yeah,
teacher, but not as a
yeah.
student for a long period of time. Um, but what do you think is good about our current system?
Well, I guess I like that we like try to hit all the bases. I
Yeah.
like that we try to expose kids to things that they might not otherwise have been exposed to. Especially now, I think I read something recently about them implementing finance and computer science courses for students in the middle school level, like grade 7, 8. And like that's amazing. That's huge. The fact that we're still like talking about these things, trying to implement new things every year is great. But I think there's also a lot of negative. I mean, at least in Ontario, there's like I think with Doug Ford last year, going back with the sex ed curriculum, reverting it to what it was before the 60s or something insane like that. There's a lot of policy issues, I guess. Uh, yeah, I I like I like being able like I like the constancy of school as well. One thing that I've missed in quarantine or that you notice a lot is that like you don't really have people to push you all the time when you're by yourself. I'm kind of wary about what school is going to be like in September for me, at least, because it's Ottawa U has already announced that they're fully online for the next semester. So that'll be 5 courses during the week online. And from my experience at the end of last semester, when we were just starting with COVID, the switch was not great. It was not fun at all. I felt completely disengaged from all my studies and almost just gave up entirely. I didn't even have to work very much because they canceled all my exams. So I kind of just got what I had done in the course.
Do you think
And
that they might sort, like, I know for us at the high school level, it was kind of, I think in fairness to everybody in the pandemic, it was just chaos, right? It was like
yeah,
going
yeah,
from, all in at school to nothing, and then learn at home. And it just all happened so quickly that there wasn't a whole lot of time for any type of planning.
hmm
Do you think that, and I don't have the answer at the high school level, because I know that they're having lots of discussion at the board level, but we haven't been given any sort of direction. Are they going to try and make it more engaging? Are they going to change up the way that they delivered the content, for you?
hmm
Will you have the opportunity to um, actually interact with classmates, with your
yeah.
professors? That part that you, like you said, you're really sort of missing out on. Do you know if there's been any talk about that, or?
Yeah, not really. There hasn't been much engagement with regards to what the day to day is going to look like. It's all really hitting off the big bases. Like, with considering the canceled exams, they had to come up with something new for the exams.
Yeah.
I just got an email yesterday actually about the new exam software they're implementing. It's a third-party software, so it won't be connected to the school at all, and they'll be tracking all the exams and keeping track of everyone's. So there's some privacy issues with that, but apparently the software they've chosen is the best that we can get. So that's pretty much all I've heard of with regards to what school is going to be like next semester. I know who my professors are,
Right.
but I don't know what the interactions will look like in post court. Right when school had stopped, every class was different. Like some were on Zoom, some were on Adobe Connect, some were on Microsoft Teams, and then some were just like, there was no online lecture at all. It was just a video posted to the schooling software Brightspace, and it's very disorienting. You're just like, oh my God, what do I have today, and this and that, and you got all these things going on. And I was only taking 4 courses last semester, so I'm adding on another one the next semester. So
Yeah,
that should be
I think that was an
interesting.
issue with the high school and the elementary as well.
Yeah, I bet.
That it just, depending on the teacher, depending on, you know, their comfort level with technology, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think, do you think, you know, that, you know, there's a lot of talk in sort of the people that I connect with in relation to sort of education and moving forward and progressive education. You know, everybody's hoping that this pandemic is going to, you know, push people to, in the education world, to change things up. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know, maybe. I think at least you're seeing different shifts across a broader spectrum beyond education, right? Like you're seeing shifts in Ottawa, our headquarters for Shopify have been dismantled. They've abandoned their headquarters and will no longer have them. Everyone will be working from home remotely.
Right.
And like that's a huge change for one company, obviously in Ottawa. But I think the room is totally there for change. And maybe it's making students realize like, oh, what could I get at home that I wasn't getting at school, or thinking about the differences between the two and what you're really at school for. I think it's as much a job for the students as it is for the teachers. Um, you really got to take a step back and think of what you're doing in these spaces and what it's really all for at the end of the day. And yeah, that kind of just makes me curious to hear about your new school. I know we talked a little about it briefly, but I had seen a little bit that you'd shared with me, and it seemed really enticing. So I
Yeah.
would like to hear more about it.
Yeah. Before I talk about that though, you make a really, really good point in that, and this is something that I think that I've found in sort of my journey in trying to, you know, change the way that we do things in education, is there's that whole societal idea of what school is. And so you're pointing out that, you know,
Yeah,
students are going to have a mind shift, but I think parents and society in general, and I think that's the same, like you said, for every industry, right? Like
yeah,
I know I have so many friends who work for the federal government or the city of Ottawa or whatever, and I think their new normal is going to be, a lot of them are going to be from home,
yeah,
because they're realizing that this can work. But yeah, it's that my husband and I were also talking about it, in that in the beginning, there was this really big feeling of guilt that I wasn't physically going somewhere, therefore I cannot be productive.
hmm
And so I think
yeah,
there's a really big mind shift that needs to happen. I also couldn't be productive because I had 2 children at home, but that's a whole different story.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, but no, yes, I'm really excited. Rise Academy is happening. I am officially taking a leave of absence from public education for a year, and I'm starting up a virtual, I hate to use the word online, because just like you were talking about your online experience,
Yeah,
I want this to be extremely different than that. So yeah, so it's going to be an accredited high school. I'm going through the inspection process right now. Lots of documents to fill out, and to make sure that I can be granted the authority to grant credits.
hmm
I'm going to be the principal, the founder, and the teacher of the school.
awesome. First ever.
Yes, probably not, but yeah, the big difference that a lot of people people don't understand is that I'm not looking to replace school. I'm looking to complement school. I'm looking to offer the ability for students to have an experience that they may not have in traditional schooling.
Hmm.
So the idea being that students would take maybe 1 or 2 courses with me. I won't offer a full timetable. Right now it's only social sciences because that's my thing. Down the road, I'm hoping to maybe I could offer a philosophy class, and once you have your degree, you could be the teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to be teaching it in quarters, so not semestered. So the courses will be 10 weeks long. They'll be a little bit quicker than traditional, and yeah, and I'm excited to offer four different courses per quarter, a grade 9, a grade 10, a grade 11, and a 12. And then I'm going to have a summer program as well. And in the fourth quarter, I sound like I'm talking about football now. In the fourth quarter, I'm going to offer a dual credit package for grade 12, so that they can, if they want to take 2 credits and work on them and do a sort of a cross-curricular approach, then they can do that. So I'm really excited about that. But I've also, when COVID happened, I started to offer an extracurricular program that you helped out at the beginning in, sharing your experience with some parents. And it started out as creating something for my daughter, who was 12, and some of her friends and my nieces. And it turned into 21 kids from around Ontario, Quebec, and the UK. And it has evolved into, it's called the Social Changemaker program. And that was 1.0, and now we're running 2.0. And I have another, so a student teacher of mine is actually teaching 2 other sessions right now. And we're going to be offering that again in the fall. So it's like, I never thought I was going to be working with kids that were not in high school. But it's worked out really, really well. And I'm super excited. I have some projects that I want to share with you actually afterwards.
That's amazing.
That I think you'd be interested in.
Sweet. Yeah, it's really great to see how much it's evolved from me being in your class, because a lot of the similar ideas are there, but now it's really concrete, and there's really there's names for things that we were just like, wait, try this, making a blog every time.
Yeah, I think in the beginning,
every week, just write about it. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yes, I remember saying that to you. Okay, you've got all this knowledge. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
But I remember just being like, okay, here are your guidelines. What do you want to learn? How do you want to learn it? And once you learn it, what are you going to do with it? And I mean, we still kind of go along those lines. But I think the real important piece that we transitioned to when you were in grade 12 was the outreach component.
Okay, yeah, was that like the Barhaven Big?
Yeah, that
started that with some benefactors and people in the community. Yeah, that was really cool.
So now we really have a focus on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where the youth will find issues in their community that they really care about. And then I've done some work with some ladies in the UK who are unbelievable. I think you'd be really interested in this, all about figuring out your strengths, and then what motivates you. And there's so much more to it than I ever thought in having these conversations with people. And so I'm bringing that into sort of the beginning of every program, so that we can get a real understanding that, I'm motivated by marks, or I'm motivated by money, or I'm motivated by, praise from people who are older, or, whatever it is. So that we can make sure that they stay motivated. And and then there's that connection to community, where they're really doing projects that have a purpose and are for an authentic audience, and they're giving back, and it's benefiting other people, all while learning stuff about Ontario curriculum, which is totally doable, but it just takes some creativity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really cool to hear about.
Couldn't be here without you guys. Yeah, so I think our last question that I want to ask people is, um, and I think this was in your tell me about yourself, but I wanna ask everybody because I did a podcast a couple weeks ago. We interviewed a lady named Jackie Wilson, and she's an empowerment coach. And the kids, so we have a social change maker podcast, and the kids wanted to ask everybody that we had on, what if you had a superpower, what would you want it to be, like if you had any superpower. And then Jackie really pointed out the fact that we all have superpowers. We don't need these fake superpowers.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important for us to know what those superpowers are. So I'm curious to know what your superpower is.
Oof, that is tough.
It is.
I don't know.
It stumps people. And I don't think I
Yeah.
gave you this in the question list, so I didn't give you time
Yeah,
to
I'm
think
not
about it.
sure. It's like, for me, I guess it's hard to think of it for yourself, right? It's probably easier for someone else to tell you, yo, you're so good at this.
Yeah,
But for me, I guess if I was thinking just with regards to myself,
it's hard. I know.
it would probably like creativity, or not creativity, curiosity. I'm sorry, curiosity and wonder. And I always forget, but I always try to come back and be amazed by everything. And it could be the smallest things, but those things are what create who you are. And when you can really find wonder and amazement in every moment, and that's when I think I'll be enlightened, maybe. Who knows?
This is
I
all this is all the Buddhism in you,
Yeah,
right? No?
definitely. It's always coming out. Just the more you think about it, the more it all makes sense, in my
Yeah,
opinion. The more I
yeah,
read about it, it's like, oh my gosh, that was always there in front of
yeah,
my face.
yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't call it a superpower. It's kind of always, it's just inside me. Like you said, it's inside everyone.
Yeah, it is inside
We all
everyone.
have it.
But
We've all got
to be
superpowers.
able to recognize it I think is also a superpower. And for some reason, we're so humble, or we're maybe not prudes, but it's really hard to point out what I'm good at, because then you think you're bragging.
Yeah, definitely. You're
But
tooting
it's
your own horn if you say something good about yourself sometimes.
but that's where we have to change our self-talk, and really, we can get into a whole other conversation here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't know. Do you have any last thoughts on education?
I think just got to change. Keep it changing. I like change.
Yeah.
And the more that we can do, the better. I think, like you said, right now we've got a tremendous opportunity for change. And to see that you're doing all this right now amid everything going on is amazing. And I hope it sparks an enormous revolution.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being my very first guest on the Unlearn with Us video series.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
You'll be back.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right. Thanks.
Bye.